Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about 5 players that you must draft that no one is talking about. But before we can get on into these 5 players, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get on into the 5 players that you must draft that no one is talking about. We begin at number 1 with my guy Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, current underdog ADP, quarterback number 11 off the board at pick 98.6. Last year, he finished the season as the quarterback 15, but he was the quarterback number 12 in points per game. As we all know, Tua did miss some time last season, playing in just 13 games. He had 400 passing attempts, 30.8 per game, ranking 18th at quarterback, 3,548 passing yards, 272.9 per game, ranking 12th, 25 passing touchdowns at a 6.3% rate, 8th, 8 interceptions, 20th, and 24 carries, 70 rushing yards, and 0 rushing touchdowns. Now, Tua Tagovailoa isn't necessarily a statue in the pocket. If needed, he can run. A couple years ago, he ran a Jets defensive player over, but at the end of the day, as someone who is a Dolphins fan and someone who obviously has seen the injuries happen to Tua, I hope he just stands there in the fucking pocket like a statue and doesn't even try to run, because when he does run, we even saw it up against the Steelers last year, on that primetime game after he was coming back from that horrific injury against the Cincinnati Bengals, he tried to lower his helmet and run through someone. So I hope that Tua doesn't run the ball at all this season, but he probably will get like 20 to 30 carries. Some interesting efficiency stats from Tua is he has a 92 true passer rating, 11th, 68.5 QBR, 3rd, 8.9 yards per pass attempt, 1st. A lot of people say that Tua can't throw deep, and he doesn't throw the ball deep. He had the most yards per attempt, 9.3 air yards per attempt, 3rd, 7.9 accuracy rating, 7th. Tyreek last offseason talked about it too as the most accurate quarterback in the NFL. Well, he didn't finish 1st, but 7th is pretty good. 50% deep ball completion percentage, number 1, and 65.3% red zone completion percentage, ranking 2nd at quarterback. Now, obviously, the biggest question mark with Tua, the biggest reason as to why people might be nervous to draft Tua, is the health. People are thinking that Tua simply can't stay healthy. He got injured in college. He's gotten injured in the NFL. Is he going to be able to stay healthy for a full season? And I fully understand that. Tua has been doing some type of training to make sure that his head doesn't snap back and smash into the ground as much. He's been working on falling. But obviously, that's not going to convince everyone that he is going to be okay. But what I will tell you is Tua is priced at a point where if he gets injured, obviously it's going to suck for your fantasy football team, but I feel like the injury risk is baked in at quarterback number 11, because when you have a quarterback that is on one of the most loaded offenses in the whole National Football League, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, they have Devin A-Chain, they have Raheem Mostert, they might even have Dalvin fucking Cook show up, right? They have Chosen Anderson, Robbie Anderson, they have Braxton Berrios. Now, obviously, Berrios and Anderson aren't on the same levels as Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, but they have 2 of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And when Tua is healthy, he looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Again, sure, he doesn't have this crazy rushing upside, but to me, at quarterback number 11, the injury risk is baked into that price. Because if Tua probably doesn't get hurt last season, he might finish as a top 8, top 5 quarterback in fantasy football. There are not many quarterbacks in the NFL that have the weapons, the level of Tua Tagovailoa. This is the 2nd year in the Mike McDaniel system. Tyreek Hill admitted a couple of weeks ago that he didn't even fully understand the playbook last season. So imagine how much better Tyreek's going to be when he actually knows which fucking route to run, right? So Tua Tagovailoa is in one of the best situations in the NFL. He proved last year that he could do it. I don't know what else I need to say about him to try to change your guys' mind on Tua. I know he's a very polarizing player, but I think he has the upside to finish as a top 5 quarterback this season. I am ecstatic to draft Tua right now as the quarterback number 11, and I've noticed in a lot of drafts that I've done, these mock drafts, he goes even later a lot of times. Moving to player number 2, we got another AFC East player, and this is Damien Harris, running back of the Buffalo Bills. Current underdog ADP, running back 38 at pick 115.8. Running back 48.5 PPR and running back 56.5 PPR points per game. Now, I will note I am a little bit worried about this take as of right now because of the fact that we still don't know where Dalvin Cook is going, and we don't know where Zeke's going to sign, where Kareem Hunt is going to sign, where Leonard Fournette is going to sign, because I think this is a potential landing spot for any of those guys. Dalvin Cook might want to come and play with his brother, James Cook. And speaking of James Cook, the guy's an absolute garbage can. James Cook might be good at catching passes, but he is not going to steal, in my opinion, any value in terms of the rushing game away from Damien Harris. 13 games played last season with 9 starts. Shockingly, he had 9.6 carries per game, 106 carries, 42nd at running back, 463 rushing yards, 42.1 per game, 44th, 23 targets, 2.1 per game, 54th, 17 receptions, 1.5 per game, 50th, 97 receiving yards, 8.8 per game, 63rd, and 3 total touchdowns, 47th. He averaged 4.2 true yards per carry, 29th, with a 35% juke rate in New England last season, ranking 5th. Obviously, Ramondre Stevenson eclipsed Damien Harris last season, and to be honest with you, you can't really blame Damien Harris for that. Ramondre Stevenson looks like one of the best young running backs in the whole fucking NFL, so Damien Harris getting pushed aside for him is just fine, in my opinion. I don't think it means that Damien Harris is just finished. He's not all that old either. We have seen seasons in New England where Damien Harris was toting the rock and looked incredibly efficient. This is a Buffalo Bills team that is one of the best offenses in the NFL. People drafted Devin Singletary last year, me included, and it was really for what I think Damien Harris can do. Devin Singletary isn't all that great. Damien Harris, to me, is much better than Devin Singletary. This is a team that's going to be scoring a bunch of points, and Damien Harris is going to be in there when they are in the red zone to score the touchdown. Now, obviously, they have Josh Allen, who could easily just jump over the offensive line, do a fucking 360 like he's a torpedo, and end up in the end zone every single time, right? But it's not like the Bills do that all that often. It's not like the Philadelphia Eagles when they're knocking on the door, and you already know this bullshit play where they give the ball to Jalen Hurts. They have the whole team push him into the end zone, right? You know that's coming. Everyone and their mother knows it's coming, and you can't stop it. But the Buffalo Bills don't do that with Josh Allen. I think at running back 38, the price is 100% correct for Damien Harris. This is easily a guy that could finish as an RB2 and could be a decent flex option in very positive matchups. Again, this is a great Bills team. Damien Harris isn't over the age clip. It's not like he's 37 years old or something. We've seen him prove it in the NFL. He's done it in the NFL before. And again, I think this Bills team, while I do project them to fall off a little bit, like I don't think they're the same Bills team for the last couple of years, they still are one of the best teams in the NFL. Again, I think Damien Harris is in the perfect situation. Sure, he's not going to catch passes because that's what James Cook is for. But if Dalvin Cook or one of these other running backs don't appear out of nowhere like an RKO from Randy Orton in Buffalo, Damien Harris could be a certified smash in this offense. Moving now to the number 3 player, we got my guy Jamaal with 2 A's Williams, running back, formerly of the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers, now of the New Orleans Saints, staying in the NFC. Underdog ADP, running back 42 at pick 126.6. Now, we have mentioned Underdog a couple of times this video, and they are the sponsor of today's video. Underdog Fantasy is the best place to play best ball fantasy football this summer. If you don't know what best ball is, it's the best part about fantasy football, the draft. I love the draft, and I don't necessarily love setting my lineup every single week, doing the waivers every single Tuesday, making trades. On Underdog, all you gotta do is draft your team, 18 rounds, and that's it. You don't have to worry about editing your lineup because Underdog at the end of the week automatically throws your best roster in there. You don't have to worry about waivers because there are no waivers and there are no trades. They also have the biggest best ball contest ever. Best Ball Mania 4, $25 to enter, 150 max entries, $3 million to first place, $15 million in total prize pool. Make sure you guys check that out. Link in the video description. If you use promo code Notorious or click on the link in the video description, you'll get a $100 first match deposit bonus up to $100. So you deposit $100, you get an additional $150, additional $50, $25, an additional $25. So make sure you guys check that out. Link in the video description. And, you know, we've just kind of talking about underdog. Jamaal Williams is a guy that I have been hammering in my recent underdog drafts. Again, running back 42 at pick 126.6. He was the RB 8.5 PPR last season and the RB 11.5 PPR points per game. Now, everyone already knows that the reason why Jamaal Williams absolutely feasted last season was because of the touchdowns. This motherfucker scored 17 total touchdowns, only behind Austin Eckler. So he was number 2 in terms of touchdowns at the running back position. And we also saw DeAndre Swift get hurt, and it seemed like Dan Campbell doesn't rock with DeAndre Swift, so we saw a lot of Jamaal Williams last year. 262 carries, 15.4 per game, ranking 7th, 1,066 rushing yards, 62.7 per game, number 10, 16 targets, number 67, 12 receptions, number 68, 73 receiving yards, 4.3 per game, 73rd, again, 17 total touchdowns, number 2. He averaged the 11th most defenders in the box, 22.9% stacked front rate, 7th, and 3.9 true yards per carry, 54th, right? He wasn't all that efficient, but a lot of the time he got the ball was when they were knocking on the door and they hand it to Jamaal Williams and the guy jumps through the offensive line like the fucking Kool-Aid man jumps through a wall. Now, the biggest reason why I like Jamaal Williams is not because he's necessarily on the Saints per se. Like, I think Derek Carr is an upgrade over Jameis, an upgrade over Dalton for sure. Andy Dalton, the Ginger Ninja, the Red Rifle, he's, you know, finished. He's over the hump. I don't think that's even a crazy thing to say, or fucking Taysom Hill playing quarterback, right? But Jamaal Williams, what I think that the reason why I like him is because it seems like Kamara is going to be suspended, right? It seems like the proof is very clear. It is lined out, or it is kind of pathed out like Lester in GTA 5 when he plans everything out on the board, right? The evidence is all there. We know he did what is alleged that he did. Why the NFL hasn't given him the suspension yet is pretty confusing. Like, I don't think Mixon is necessarily going to get the suspension, but I know damn well that I would be legitimately perplexed. I've talked about this a bunch. I would be so shocked if Alvin Kamara doesn't at least get 6 games. I think he can get 8 games. But if he doesn't get a suspension at all, based upon what he did and how much proof they have, that would just be crazy. So then that moved this offense to having Jamaal Williams, Kendre Miller as the 2 backs. I love Kendre Miller. I love him out of college. I like his player profile. I like him to catch a bunch of balls in his backfield, right? People have even talked about how he's like DeAndre Swift. He's like Alvin Kamara. But I'm going to be honest with you, when they get down to the goal line, they're not giving the ball to Kendre Miller. They're giving the ball to Jamaal Williams. And the Saints' schedule is soft as baby shit. If you look at the schedule, you'd be like, oh my God, the Saints might win 12 games. The Saints, I don't think, are very good in terms of a roster. They have pretty good defense, but offensively, they're pretty right? Like, Derek Carr being your starting quarterback doesn't make me excited, right? But I think this is a team that when they get on the goal line, if Kamara's not there, Jamaal Williams is going to jump in the end zone a million times. And maybe even when Kamara comes back, Jamaal Williams can still do that. Do I expect him to score 17 total touchdowns? No. But he doesn't need to score 17 total touchdowns when he's running back 42 off the board, right? At pick 126. This is a guy that probably isn't even in your starting roster most weeks, but has the upside if they throw the book at Kamara. And maybe if Kendre Miller isn't necessarily ready early on in the season, Jamaal Williams could finish the first couple weeks of the season, if Kamara's suspended, as a top 24 guy with top 12 upside. So I'm all over Jamaal Williams right now. I know he might not technically be a league winner because at the end of the season in the fantasy playoffs, he might be useless. But at least at the beginning of the season, the first couple of weeks, again, I assume Kamara's getting suspended. Let me know in the comments. If you think Alvin Kamara isn't getting suspended, I think you're a little bit crazy. But let me know. Maybe some people do think that. And if that's the case, you probably don't like Jamaal Williams as much as I do. Moving now to player numero 4. Numero uno, dos, tres, cuatro, we have Dalton Schultz, tight end of the Houston Texans, current underdog ADP, tight end 13 at pick 137.2. Last year was the tight end 10 in Dallas in half PPR, and the tight end 11 in half PPR points per game. 15 games played last year. He did kind of step down compared to what I thought he was going to do. He wasn't a bust because he wasn't coming off the board as like tight end number 3 or something, but he didn't live up to my expectations personally, and that Dallas team was just all right last year. I mean, they're still one of the better teams in the NFC, but that's just really because the NFC as a whole is just a much worse product when you compare to the AFC, right? There's the Eagles, there's the 49ers, there's the Cowboys. The AFC, there is the Chiefs, there's the Bengals, the Bills, the Ravens, the Dolphins. There's a lot more teams with that pizzazz, whereas there's really only 3 teams in the NFC that I'd say are going to win the Super Bowl. And then now next year, like the Saints are going to win the Super Bowl, right? I'm going to look like a fucking dumbass. 89 targets, 5.9 per game, ranking 7th. 57 receptions, 3.8 per game, 11th. 577 receiving yards, 38.5 per game, 10th. 5 total tugs, 8th at tight end. 93.4% true catch rate in terms of efficiency stats, 9th. 1.18 yards per team pass attempt, 13th, and a 17.8% dominator rating, 16th. If you look at the Houston Texans wide receiver core, they got Nico Collins. They bring in Tank Dell in the NFL draft. They also have John Mechie coming back. Obviously, John Mechie missed all of last season with that health complication. I'm glad that John Mechie is good to go. They draft CJ Stroud. This is a team where, in my opinion, I like Nico Collins a ton, but I would not be shocked at all if Dalton Schultz was number 2 in targets on this team. We've seen it in the past. These young quarterbacks look for the safety blanket, the big bastard that's standing there 5 feet away from you or 5 yards away that you just throw the ball to. He's the safety net. Throw it to Dalton Schultz. And I think CJ Stroud might do that a bunch. I think that this is a very good situation for Dalton Schultz to be in. Now, obviously, the situation in Dallas is probably better because you have a quarterback that I'm at least really confident in, right? Dak Prescott, some people are kind of negative towards him, but at the end of the day, we know what Dak is. He's a top 12-ish quarterback in the NFL, and any given Sunday, he could be the best quarterback in the NFL, and we've seen that in the past. So, obviously, in times of quarterback safety, it's much more of a condom around Dalton Schultz when you're in Dallas. But in Houston, just, I don't know how far away those things are. Got to be like maybe within a couple hours away. They're both in Texas. I think Dalton Schultz is going to get a lot of targets. I think tight end 13 is probably his floor, right? If you finish this tight end, you draft him as tight end 13. If you finish as tight end 13, you're like, okay. But I think he could finish inside the top 6, top 5. Now, obviously, the beginning is loaded, right? You got Andrews, Kelsey, and you got Hawkinson, right? Those guys are loaded. But outside of that, I like people like Pitts, right? I get it. You like Goddard. You like these other guys, right? But you don't really feel as confident in those guys as you do the Hawkinson, the Andrews, and obviously the Kelsey. So I think Dalton Schultz, again, he's in a pretty decent situation. I think he, in terms of talent at the tight end position, is at least a top 10 talent. I think the Texans are going to look a lot better than last year. I mean, Davis Money Mills, besides having a humongous neck, that's really his only good attribute or his only funny attribute. So I think Dalton Schultz, again, he's in a pretty good situation here. I like the head coach that they brought in from San Fran. Obviously, he's more of a defensive-minded guy, so I don't think Dalton Schultz is magically going to transform into George Kittle or something, but maybe we can just hope that happens. So now moving to player number 5, we got Tyquan Thornton of the New England Patriots, wide receiver. Underdog ADP, wide receiver 72. Pick 160. Now, Tyquan Thornton was an interesting pickup last season in fantasy. We saw some flash games. Right? And I'm not talking about the computer flash games. Like, we saw some solid games, right? Now, it wasn't like he mixed them all together, right? He didn't just run off and have like 5 great games in a row, but he had a couple of good games last year. And he looks talented. He obviously got hurt early on in preseason, so he only played in 13 games with 9 starts, but Tyquan still had he didn't finish super high, but if you watch the tape, it's a little bit more better. It's a lot better to actually watch him play compared to when I read these stats off, right? These are unsexy stats, right? Wide receiver 100 in half PPR. That's ass, right? Wide receiver 101 in half PPR points per game. 13 games played, 9 starts, 45 targets, 3.5 per game, 22 receptions, 1.7 per game, 247 receiving yards, 19 per game, 3 total touchdowns, 50th at wide receiver. Early reports out of OTAs were that Tyquan Thornton is flashing, right? he's like a Girls Gone Wild fucking television ad, right? Which shouldn't be surprising at all because, again, he flashed last season. 18. He had 2 games inside the top 18 at the wide receiver position. The Patriots wide receiver core is ass. Juju, right? I kind of started to like Juju a couple of months ago, and I feel like I'm almost out on Juju again. Like, I don't know. He's still dealing with injury issues. Like, this guy was given the crown. We all crowned him a couple years ago, and he hasn't really done anything outside those early seasons in Pittsburgh with AB, Antonio Brown. Business is booming. So they got Juju. They've got my boy Devontae Parker. Like, I love Devontae Parker, but let's be honest with you. He's not the best. Kendrick Bourne. Kayshawn Booty. And Amario Douglas. So would anyone in the audience be shocked if Tyquan Thornton ended up being the guy? The guy you want. The guy you need in New England. They go from an absolute stooge at offensive coordinator. An idiot. A dumbass. Matt Patricia. Apparently, Matt Patricia, I don't know if you guys saw this. It was like an offseason thing. I heard Pete Overzet talk about it. I thought it was funny. That apparently Matt Patricia was like an architect. He was like working on things around the building for the Patriots. That's fucking hilarious. But now they bring in the boy, Bill O'Brien, Bob. Obviously, Bill O'Brien has that negative attention around him, the negative thoughts around him because of what he did in Houston when he traded away DeAndre Hopkins for a half-eaten bag of chips and a used condom. But sure, he wasn't great at being the GM of the team. But what he was good at is calling offensive plays, right? He dialed up Deshaun Watson back when Deshaun Watson was looking amazing before he had to get a couple of massages. So at the end of the day, I think this offense is going to be passing the ball more. They're one of the least pass-heavy offenses in the NFL. I still think Stevenson is going to be good this season, but I think they're throw the ball more. I think the offensive situation is going to be a lot better. I'm never going to be a Mac Jones truther, but at the end of the day, Tyquan's coming off the board at wide receiver 72. It doesn't take fucking rocket science for Tyquan Thornton to easily eclipse that. And if he is the number 1 receiver on the team, if he becomes maybe even just Jacoby Myers from last year, that's a great pick you made at wide receiver 72 at pick 160. And when you're coming off the board at pick 160 in a redraft league, that's basically undrafted, right? So he might even be a free agent at the end of your draft, but I think people are going to start hopping all aboard the choo-choo train, the Tyquan Thornton hype trains. Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Fucking smash it like it owes you some money. Hit that like button down below. Hit that subscribe button. I would appreciate it a ton. Again, make sure to check out Underdog Fantasy. Link down below in the video description. If you use promo code Notorious, you will get a first match deposit bonus up to $100. Again, deposit 100, you get an additional 100. If you just want to do 25, get additional 25. I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy.